tempted to quote the president. The first line he used in the State of the Union, as you may have heard, was, "If I was smart, I'd go home now." I'm already home, but I appreciate the very nice introduction, and I'm glad to be with you, even if only virtually. I went to college at Willamette, and some of my earliest experiences in Oregon politics were knocking on doors in Polk County, in West Salem, more specifically for Brian Johnston, for whom I worked in the Oregon legislature. So he was one of my mentors, and in fact, I was just talking about him with somebody today. So it's a nice thing to be able to recall that. I really appreciate a chance to talk about why I'm running for Secretary of State, and I assume that I don't have to convince any of you that this is a really important office, and an important race. And you don't have to take my word for it, of course, because you think about all the stories that we read across the country right now, stories about threats of violence to election workers and voters in some cases, misinformation that's being spread, and policies, laws in other states that are being passed to make it harder for people to vote. I don't think this is just about altering election outcomes. I think it's part of a broader effort to undercut the confidence that Americans have in our system of elections, and even more broadly, the idea that we can do more together than we ever can apart. So this is one of the real reasons that I'm running. Fortunately, we've got a lot to be proud of in Oregon, and a lot of things that separate us. We've virtually perfected voting by mail. We have automatic voter registration, which has brought a whole lot of new people into our process. And we have really proven that our elections are secure and safe, and fair. But these are not things that we can count on or take for granted, I think, because there are people out there who are trying to undo that success. And that, too, is one of the reasons that I'm running for Secretary of State. So while people think of the Secretary of State's office as about elections, and it is, the office is bigger than that at the same time. The Secretary of State in Oregon is the auditor for the state as well, with the responsibility to make sure that state dollars are being spent efficiently and effectively, and that agencies and programs are operating appropriately. And on top of that, the Secretary of State's office is where every Oregon business registers. So we can make it easier for the next Oregon business to launch, and for every Oregon business to succeed. And that, I think, proves that this is a really important office with a big set of responsibilities. And now more than ever, I think it's essential to have someone in that office with the proven leadership and experience that can allow us to restore trust and confidence in state government. I tell you, I thought I was done with elected office for a while. I'm wrapping up my second term as treasurer, and I'm really proud of our record. But I also realize that my work isn't done on that, and I think it's spirit that makes me the strongest candidate for this office. Our success in the Treasury, I think, really is that stems from the fact that we have always tried to be about investing for Oregon's future. We've implemented an innovative savings program that's helping more Oregonians save for college and job training after high school. We've created a first of its kind program to help people save for retirement. It's now got more than 100,000 Oregonians with funded IRAs, and we did that before anybody else in the country. And at the same time, we've protected the pension of more than 400,000 Oregonians and grown that portfolio to $100 billion plus. And we've been leading other institutional investors to make sure that we are protecting Oregon's wilderness and reducing the effects of climate change. We've protected the Elliott Forest, turning it into the largest research forest in North America, and we have pushed the companies where we invest to reduce their carbon emissions. At the same time, we've dramatically increased our investments in clean energy and renewable technology. So when I saw this need, this urgent need for new leadership in the Secretary of State's office, I felt the pull back to public service. That's why I'm in this business, after all, because I believe so much in the mission and the difference that we can make in helping the lives of Oregonians to be easier. One of my proudest moments in public service, in fact, is a good example of this. When I was in the legislature, I got to play a leading role in bringing full-day kindergarten, as the chair already mentioned. And I was happy to do that because not only does it have a huge impact on students who are getting a good start, it has an impact families and on communities who don't have to worry so much about the cost or quality of early childhood experiences, and can put themselves in a better situation. That is why I do this work. But I tell you, I'm worried that thanks to Donald Trump and his supporters, we're seeing an increasing decline in people's engagement, in their confidence in our systems of government, our institutions, and in democracy itself. And I think that is not only alarming, it's dangerous, and it's not something that we can allow to continue. So when I'm Secretary of State, we will start the hard work of rebuilding confidence and trust in government. We'll have new standards for transparency and ethics. We will make sure that audits are driven not by politics or predetermined agendas, but by realistic assessments of risk and by data. And we'll turn the office into a partner for Oregon entrepreneurs and business leaders to make sure that they are following the rules, but also in a position to succeed. And I think that all of that has to come, of course, on top of the work that is essential to democracy itself, making sure that we continue our well-earned tradition and reputation in Oregon of being a national leader when it comes to making it easy to vote, making sure that our elections are secure, inclusive, safe, and fair, and that people feel that way. We're not going to let anyone undercut people who are doing a disservice to that. We're not going to let anyone intimidate election workers or people who are trying to vote. Stand up to those mega extremists who have that agenda and are threatening people who are just trying to do their jobs. So I just, tonight is another example of how, despite the fact that we're a big geographic state with lots of backgrounds, we come together in defense of our values, that everybody deserves a fair shot. That diversity is not something to be derided as woke. It's a real and tangible source of strength, and that equality and justice for all really matter to us. So I know we've got work to do to live up to those values, but those are the values that animate me, as I assume they animate you, and they're the things that I'll fight for every day as Secretary of State. So I appreciate the time. To the extent your agenda allows it, I'd be really interested in hearing what's on your mind, although I know you have a tight agenda, and the president's probably still speaking.
I'm not hearing Tobias. Are you guys hearing him?
I'm hearing him.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm just wrapping up. So I was hoping that you might have some time for questions or comments, because I know I will learn more from a dialogue than a monologue. So back to you, Mr. Chair.
That was really great, Tobias. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Do you have a minute for a couple of questions?
Absolutely. And just before we take them, it'll give people a chance to formulate one. I realized I did the worst thing a candidate can do, which is to not acknowledge the person I work for, our very talented campaign manager, Andrea Phillips, who is on the screen as well. She's more than capable of introducing herself, of course, but in case she forgets this, she has particular credibility, I think, in groups like this, because we imported talent here. Andrea is the former vice chair of the Iowa Democratic Party, so she's very experienced and is a fan of local parties. But Andrea, if you want to add anything, I'm sure I sold you short.
No, that's exactly right. That my heart is with county parties and local Democratic politics, and I just want to thank you all for doing the hard work tonight of local politics, because while the State of the Union is going on, and that's super important, and I'm excited to watch the recording of it when we're done tonight, but local politics is really where the work happens, and so I just wanted to thank all of you for that.
And Andrea put our email addresses in the chat. She put her email address and our website in the chat, so that's a good place to keep in touch with us when we're not here tonight. But on to the questions, please.
So, Tobias, I'll start out.
Sure.
Fairly new to Oregon, 3 years in, and found out it was so easy to get to vote and to register to vote. It kind of blew my mind from other states that I've lived in. But here in Polk County, we have roughly 18,000 Democrats registered, 19,000 Republicans, and 21,000 non-affiliated voters. What is your opinion on the structure of the motor voting and how that's resulting in these kinds of numbers?
Well, it's a good question, and I've talked with about 22 of the 36 county clerks about this question. And obviously, the advantages, I think, of having people automatically register outweigh the challenges that you articulated. We want people to vote. We want to make it easy. what is interesting in this experience, the numbers that you articulated lay out, is that we can't presume or decide for someone which party they prefer, and so a lot of people who are automatically registered stay in non-affiliated status until, and this is the interesting story I heard from one county clerk, they get a ballot in a primary and realize that they are not affiliated with the party they prefer. And in many cases, come to the county clerk and say, I got the wrong ballot. I wanted a Republican ballot or a Democratic ballot. Of course, we know we'd prefer the latter. But the clerk, in many cases, has to say, I'm sorry, the deadline for changing your party affiliation has passed. And that person then might walk away frustrated. Maybe they'll still vote, but it doesn't help a person, to get in the habit of voting if they're not able to vote as they wish. So while there are a lot of interesting discussions to be had about reforms that have been proposed here and elsewhere about changing the fundamental structure, this clerk that I'm thinking of offered a really practical and pragmatic discussion, a suggestion, which is just to change the deadline by which people can change their party affiliation. This clerk said it would be no problem to handle the workload. They could just simply print another ballot for the person and they'd be able to vote the way they wish. That, I think, puts people on a better path to be reliable voters, and it gives us as Democrats the chance to demonstrate to them that hopefully their values align with ours, and we can move those numbers up and in our favor.
Any other questions? Well, so I've got one more then, and maybe
Sure.
we can close. And that's just, what do you think of the strategy of us reaching out to those non-affiliated voters through a texting campaign to advise them if they want to vote in the primary as a Democrat, here's how you do it?
Fantastic. Absolutely. And I think any of those formats make sense. Text is, far be it for me to sound like I'm criticizing or being dissatisfied with that, because text is much better than nothing. I'm coming to you from Washington County, the home of the neighborhood leader program. So when you can figure out those unaffiliated voters in your neighborhood, knock on their door and talk to them face to face would be even better. But any kind of communication, repeated communication from people they know, people they trust, that's going to add tremendous effectiveness. And I think the idea that people know their neighbors and have a sense of what Democrats are about, I think that's going to be great.
Thank you for that answer. Mike Weber?
Yeah, real quickly, there's a lot of talk and scuttlebutt, and even some bills being addressed about Oregon's investment in fossil fuel.
Yep.
And I'm not exactly sure. I know obviously we want to get off fossil fuels, but I don't know enough about it to know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I was thinking maybe you could address that a little bit.
I'd be happy to, and I'll give a little a request for assistance from Andrea while I'm talking. If you could go find the URL, we can put this in the chat as well. It's a timely question, Mike, because on the 6th of February, I was in front of the Oregon Investment Council to describe and present the plan that I developed to move the pension fund to a net zero carbon position by 2050. And that deserves a couple of notes of explanation. The first is that this fund, the pension fund, it's about $100 billion, a lot of money, but it's a lot of money because it is owned by a lot of people. About 400,000 people, current and future retirees, it's part of their compensation, and they rely on the returns that this fund provides to buy their groceries and pay their rent and all those sorts of things. So that is our exclusive responsibility. We owe that morally, legally, constitutionally to the people who are in that system. So as much as we might all at this call, when we don't have our fiduciary hats, share a policy preference, the policies don't come into play when we are investments. We are duty bound to be fiduciaries. But in order to be fiduciaries, we have to consider every risk that is presenting itself to our ability to generate returns in that fund. And the risk of climate, as measured by carbon, is certainly one of those risks. So this fund has to do two things simultaneously that are both hard on their own. It has to generate 6.9% year over year over year over year in returns. At the same time, that has to generate about $450 million in cash every month to pay those people who have earned those benefits. So we can't get either one of those wrong. So the plan that we're going to find the link for and put in the chat goes into pretty significant detail about how we're going to do that. The summary of that is basically to invest less in things that are high emissions in carbon and don't have a plan for how to reduce that investment risk. At the same time that we're going to invest more in things that are reducing carbon emissions and providing, what could be described as climate solutions. It's going to take time to do that. It takes a while to identify the specific investments and the strategies that are going to play out responsibly, because we have to make this change at the same time that we don't put returns at risk for the beneficiaries who've earned that compensation and are reliant on those benefits. So I could take up. I might even be in a position to talk as long about this as the president is going to talk tonight, because I care about it. I put a lot into it, and I'm really proud of the work that our team has done to put this plan into life. So you can read about it in detail at the links that Andrea put it in the chat. I could talk more, but hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you.
Super helpful.
Thank you.
So I think we're at time here. The great Treasurer of the state of Oregon, Tobias Reed, best of luck with your campaign, and look forward to you serving as the next Secretary of State. And we are robustly involved with the Neighborhood Leader Program here with a high focus in West Salem, as a matter of fact. So love that intro.
Those long hills and those long driveways.
The long hills and the gullies and all of that. I know, that was fabulous. So thank you very much for both Andrea and for yourself in joining us tonight. And maybe we could get you down here for an in-person event at some point.
I would love it. Please email us. I'm there on in Salem on a regular basis because a lot of our team is there. So I'm sure we can work something out. Please be in touch. Hope to have your votes. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much. Thanks, guys.